Welcome back to Let's Take a Walk, brought to you by the Feld Group Institute. In today's episode, we are revisiting a conversation from 2021 with J.R. Jesson. Even though this clip was recorded a few years ago, the ideas J.R. lays out are still incredibly relevant today. He draws a sharp distinction between an organization at rest, focused on structure, leadership, and culture, and an organization in motion, where alignment, flow, and empowered execution drive results. These concepts remain at the heart of how organizations succeed in adapting to change, adopting new practices, and creating empowered, cross-functional teams. If anything, the need to balance stability with speed has only become more pressing in 2025. Let's take a walk back into this insightful moment with J.R. Jesson.
Right. So this is something that is kind of the first, as I like to say, the first installment of our blog on this topic. Really describes and tries to formalize and define the distinction between the organization at rest and an organization in motion, right? That might be using something like SAFe. So the organization at rest is really focused on structure, leadership, culture, workforce. The organization in motion is really about alignment, capacity, flow, and feedback. From a team of teams perspective, if you're familiar with the writing of Stanley McChrystal and the book Team of Teams and some of the follow-on volumes, they describe the at rest as achieving shared consciousness. In order to get an organization really moving at maximum effectiveness, the organization needs to have a collected sense of understanding about where they are, where they're going, why they're doing, and their why, right? Why they're doing certain things. The emotion side is all about empowered execution, right? So this is really giving teams the tools and the alignment techniques to ensure that they can work fairly freely and at higher levels of productivity to accomplish needed business goals. From an artifact perspective, we described the enterprise technology strategy, the story deal plan, as an essential element of establishing the guardrails and intent of the at-rest model, while the emotion model is really focused on achieving outcomes, right? Business, architecture, productivity outcomes. And then finally, we use, detailed focus on architecture, on structure as the method for ensuring that we have both business and technology guardrails, intent, and structure in a definable and actionable way. And on the right side, then we can implement scaled agile practices, DevOps, aspirational things like continuous delivery based on those foundational elements. So this is really important because I've seen a lot of our clients struggling with topics like DevOps, right? And some of the reasons that organizations struggle with things like DevOps has a lot to do with the confusion about what the organization at rest is responsible for versus the organization in flight, right? The organization at rest really should be focused on reuse models, on creating, the kinds of artifacts that teams can then quickly adopt and use and deploy in their execution. But fine grain, getting in the middle of work that a team is doing against established guardrails, it's really not, that's when we see flow problems occur in organizations where you see lower developer productivity or the inability to really adopt things like DevOps in any sort of a meaningful way, right? The other thing that's important here, I think, as we look at these two dimensions, is that the notion of in motion really is built on the core idea of the team and on the notion of the cross-functional team. So when you hear us talk about a beachhead and the notion of a cross-functional team, I'm sure you've heard Charlie mention in multiple forums that necessity to pull people out of the organization and into some operational context to accomplish the mission of the beachhead. And here, what you'll notice, kind of a fine point of the diagram, is that we're using color on the right to indicate the homeroom that they might live in on the left, right? So they're not necessarily leaving their organization, but they're working in this new kind of construct that something like SAFe can be very effective at defining all of the operating processes and providing all the competencies that are required to kind of pull that off.